Hey everybody, today on Northern Revolutions, I'm doing another installment of You Gotta Hear This. And today, you gotta hear Matt Mays. I'm going to be talking about all his albums and which ones I like best. So stay tuned. Hey VC, welcome to Northern Revolutions. I'm Rob. Today I'm doing another installment of my series called You Gotta Hear This. One of the things I really like about the VC is you get exposed to a lot of different music you might not have heard of before. And I really enjoy watching other people's channels and discovering music that I hadn't previously discovered on my own. Today I'm going to feature an artist from Nova Scotia called Matt Mays. I think that he is the best rock musician in Canada today, period, hands down, no question. I think he's outstanding. So I'm going to talk to you about his albums today, let you know what I think are the best and where you might want to start if it's an artist that you want to discover. Before I do that, if everyone could do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button, I certainly appreciate that. As well, don't forget that bell notification icon to let you know when I've uploaded something new. Now, most people think the Matt Mays story starts here with his self-titled debut release, but it actually goes back a little earlier than that. It starts with this album. This is an album by a band called the Guthries. Now, this album, called Off Windmill, was released in 2000. The Guthries were an alt country band formed in Halifax in 1998, of which Matt Mays was one of the founding members. I've seen the Guthries compared to the Jayhawks or Uncle Tupelo. Maybe. I think they're a little mellower than that. So this debut record came out in 2000, and Matt wrote 4 of the songs on this record. They don't sound quite like Matt's solo stuff, but the first track, Better Part of an Hour, and the last track, Rhubarb Pie, I think strongly hint at what was to come for Matt. If you're a Matt Mays purist, grab it. In 2002, before the Guthries released their second album, Matt Mays left the band and struck out on his own. And he released this album called Matt Mays. It's his self-titled release. His sound is, if you like Tom Petty or Bruce Springstein or Bob Seger with a strong influence of Neil Young, I think that pretty much describes Matt Mays. This album was released in 2002. It's a rootsy rock album. It's electric. It's rootsy. There are some fantastic songs on here. Downtown, I think, got some decent radio airplay when it first came out. City of Lakes, which is the song playing in the background at the moment, is, I think, probably everyone's favorite from this record. It still gets played all the time in concerts. It's, I think, the one that everyone recognizes from this album. Thankfully, about, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, his entire catalog was put out on vinyl because this wasn't available initially on vinyl. What's nice about this version of the record is that it comes with a bonus 7-inch, sometime soon moving on, in City of Lakes. So nice to have that bonus that wasn't on the CD. In 2005, following the success of Matt's solo record, he released this album, Matt Mays and El Torpedo. El Torpedo was his new backing band that among others, was comprised of Jim Baker, who was with him in the Guthries, and it also saw Jay Smith, guitarist, and Adam Baldwin, guitarist, join the band, who would be with Matt for many albums to come, and in fact, Adam's still with him today. This album was a commercial success. This is what gave Matt, some mainstream exposure. The big hit off of this was Cocaine Cowgirl, just playing in the background. This received mainstream radio airplay, was also on Much Music quite a bit. This was nominated for a slew of East Coast Music Awards. When Cocaine Cowgirl was at its peak on the radio charts, Matt and his band toured across Canada in support of Blue Rodeo, which is a pretty big deal to tour in support of them. It's launched a lot of careers. This record is a natural progression of his self-titled release. More rock, less rootsy. Still has that, sort of Neil Young tradition to it, and Bruce Springsteen-esque component, but it's definitely more rock. Probably the most positively reviewed of Matt's albums, and even people that aren't Matt Mays fans will like this record, and most people know the song Cocaine Cowgirl. So, a great record. The next one that I want to talk about came out in 2006. When the Angels Make Contact. I will be honest with you, I don't really like this record. This is a little different project for Matt. So, this was the soundtrack to a movie that Matt wrote and directed, of the same name, When the Angels Make Contact. So we conceptualized a movie and a soundtrack, and the movie was never finished. It was, by all accounts, almost completely filmed, and then they ran out of funding and it was just never finished. And he conceived the film as the journey of a motorcyclist that was on a crusade, and it sort of takes place from sundown to sunup. And this album was the soundtrack to that movie, so it's not an album in the traditional sense. I find this really hard to get into. It's very trippy, it's experimental. He sort of threw a lot at the wall to see what would stick, I guess is the way to describe it. There's a whole bunch of different moods, a whole bunch of different instrumentation. It's got some guest vocalists on here. Now, there still are some songs that sound a lot like Matt. This song is called The Plan. It's probably the most normal. I say that like it's a bad thing, I guess. I'm all for people pushing the envelope and trying new things. By and large, I tend to skip this album. I sort of think of it as a tangent to the progression of Matt's music, because all the other albums seem to be, a linear progression, and this is just kind of an outlier. It's kind of weird. Not bad, just kind of weird. Doesn't really appeal to me. So if you like things that are sort of trippy and experimental, you might like When the Angels Make Contact. After the Angels Make Contact, Matt put out what I think is an absolute masterpiece. Terminal Romance. For my money, one of the best rock albums I've ever heard. I love this record. This was the last Matt Mays and El Torpedo record before El Torpedo disbanded after this album came out. It is his best straightforward, balls to the walls rock and roll. It's amazing. There's so many great songs on here. This is a song called Stand and Deliver. It's a great electric rock record. I don't know what more to say. If you want to start somewhere that epitomizes the rock sound that is Matt Mays, start with Terminal Romance. It's amazing. This was the only version of the LP, which came out in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It does include a 7-inch that has Long Since Gone and Get Lucky, which were not on the original CD. So this is just an amazing rock record. I view it as the sequel to the Matt Mays and El Torpedo record. I sort of ignore that When the Angels Make Contact happened. This is a true successor to the other album that had Cocaine Cowgirl on it. This is the next evolution. It's a little louder, it's a little rockier, but just wonderful. In 2012, Matt put out what was unquestionably his greatest critical and commercial success, and that was an album called Coyote. Fantastic record. It's on white vinyl. This was an album that won the Juno Award for Rock Album of the Year. Well deserved. The Junos are the Canadian version of the Grammys. There are some amazing hits on here. Indio, which is the lead single, the sort of pop rock, radio friendly, single. Ain't That the Truth? Take It on Faith, which is a song that's playing, probably my favorite. Amazing song in here called Dull Knife, which is just this slow rocker that it's great. Queen of Portland Street. I mean, there's just everything on here. Again, this is like the other ones, just gets a little louder and a little harder. The songwriting on this is excellent. I would say that deeper lyrically. Not that any of his are not deep by any means. This just seems to be a little more sophisticated in terms of, I guess, thematic content, but what the hell do I know? I'm not a songwriter. I saw them on this tour. I've seen Matt many times. This was Matt's new solo band after El Torpedo. So Jay Smith and Adam Baldwin from El Torpedo stayed with him in this lineup, and there were some additional musicians that joined the band. I saw them in Hamilton, Ontario on this tour. And after Hamilton, they headed out to Alberta. And I believe they were in Edmonton 2 days later. And tragically, Jay Smith, Matt's guitarist, was found dead in his hotel room that morning. He had taken his own life. I was shocked. I had seen them 2 or 3 days prior to that. I was in the front row, 5 feet away from Jay. I got the news from someone that occasionally plays with Matt's band, and it was quite shocking. And had some musical consequences down the road. It's what inspired Matt's next record, but unfortunately that's the one thing I think about when I think about this record. But by the same token, this record is so good. It adds to the legacy of Jay Smith as an absolutely amazing guitar player. So fantastic record. After a 5-year break, Matt came back in 2017 with this album called Once Upon a Hell of a Time. And I think this was largely inspired by Jay's death and Matt learning to live with that. This is another great straight up rock record. It's a lot more introspective, it's a lot more reflective, it's a lot more of, I think, of Matt appreciating life and maybe not taking things for granted. Just a wonderful rock record. It's got a very interesting cover done by the artist Ola Volo, who there's actually a song about on this record. This song is New York City Girls. It's an enjoyable record. I don't listen to it as much as I should. I'm going to tell you why in just a second. The reason that I don't listen to Once Upon a Time as much as I should is because I listen mainly to Twice Upon a Hell of a Time. So this came out in 2018, a year later. This was Matt doing all acoustic versions of the Once Upon a Time album. He called it Twice Upon a Time, reverse the cover image as well. It's on maroon vinyl, the other album's on clear vinyl, which is kind of neat. I gravitate to this album, I think, for two reasons. I was able to get a copy of this before I got Once Upon a Time, so it's the one I heard first. And I think often the version of a song you hear first is the one you prefer. But also because the songs on here are beautiful. They're incredibly thought-provoking, as I mentioned. They're a lot more introspective. And there are some songs on here that just are brought to a whole nother level by being done acoustically. Station Out of Range, which is playing right now, it's good electrically. The acoustic version is a beautiful work of art. I mean, I wish I could actually play it for you so that you could hear it, but I don't want to offend the copyright police. It's just one of the most emotionally powerful ballads. It's great, but it works as a rock song, but works better this way. So Once Upon a Hell of a Time is a fantastic album. I just think there's some songs on it that are so much more powerful done acoustically. So I prefer this version of the album. You can't go wrong with either of them. They're amazing works of art. So after the amazing album that was Twice Upon a Hell of a Time, the world got hit with the pandemic. And in early 2020, when we had our first lockdown here in Canada, Matt was hunkered down in the studio and created this. This is Dogcity. You can see it's a collage of people's dogs. They're all fans that you can submit your picture of your dog and make it onto the cover. There's Matt and a cartoon dog on the back. This concept album. I won't lie to you and say that I like this album. I don't like this album. When I was talking about When Angels Make Contact, I said it's very experimental and it's not always my cup of tea. I kind of got to be in the mood to listen to it. There are some songs I like. This doesn't appeal to me, unfortunately. This is a concept album where Matt wrote the album from the viewpoint of a dog, which is cool. I like the idea. It's interesting, what that perspective would be. I'm just not a fan of the material on this record. There's nothing on here that really appeals to me. It is a pretty big departure from what he's used to, but it wasn't supposed to be like his normal stuff. It was him in the studio going a little shack wacky like we all were, and this was the sort of experimental thing. So, you know, hats off to taking a chance and doing something. There are people that like this. Not my cup of tea. I don't listen to this ever. But that's not to say that you wouldn't like something on here. So, Dogcity. This brings me to Matt's most recent release. I've showed this before in other videos. From Burnside with Love. This was a concert it was a concert film that they also released as a live album. It was recorded in the winter of 2018 in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, but it wasn't released until 2021. It was done as a concert broadcast you could buy a ticket for, which I did, and you could pre-order the album. This is an autographed copy. It's a triple LP. Think of this as a career-spanning retrospective of Matt's career. It's all acoustic. It's very much, looks like MTV Unplugged. If you didn't know, you'd think that's what it was. It's wonderful. It's Matt's current band with special guests, Azabrosius on dobro and pedal steel, and my friend Kendall Carson on fiddle and vocals. This is absolutely wonderful. I've said before, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely my second favorite live album of all time. This starts with, you know, it starts at the beginning of career and works its way through his entire catalog. There is a fair amount of stuff on here. All acoustic, all absolutely wonderful. What I love about this is Matt is very much electric. I mean, I go to his concerts and I wear earplugs and my ears still hurt. He's loud. And these are beautiful acoustic arrangements of songs that you never thought you'd ever hear acoustic before. It's wonderful. So there you have it, folks. That's the career of Matt Mays, the best rocker in Canada. I hope that this might pique your interest to check him out. If I could recommend where to start. Terminal Romance, his best album. My personal opinion, I think it's the best. One of the best rock albums I've ever heard. I absolutely love it. Start here. This captures what his sound is like. To a degree either way, he can be a little mellower or a lot louder, but this epitomizes what Matt Mays' sound is, and it's an absolutely fantastic rock record. The other choice, in my mind, From Burnside with Love. And the reason that I recommend this one, while it is unplugged, it's amazing, as I said, but it spans his entire career from his first album to his last. It doesn't include Dogcity because that was recorded after this, but it has songs from everything else. So if you want to get a smattering of his entire career, go with this record. That's it for me today, guys and girls. I hope someone out there wants to check out Matt Mays. I cannot say enough about how amazing he is as a live performer. He's incredible. Please check him out. He is on all the streaming platforms. I'm sure he has a Bandcamp page where you can get all of his albums digitally, or you can buy physical copies. The concert film From Burnside with Love is available on YouTube. I'll leave a link for that in the description. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to hear if anyone actually did check out Matt and what you thought of it. That's my latest installment of You Gotta Hear This. Thanks, everybody. I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.